Hi, friends. So, energy levels pretty much completely back. Pain wise, doing pretty good. There is still some pressure on and off if I've been standing for too many hours or just doing too much. But for the most part, I'm actually feeling almost back to normal. So, I still can't lift anything above 20 pounds. So, that's something that's going to be there for the next little over a month. Or so. So in order to like weed the garden, which this week or today actually is that's today's project is to get this back under control because it's insane. It is a very big task that I am setting out to do today. But in order to make it so that way I'm not ripping weeds up and potentially pulling with more force than 20 pounds, I'm actually just going to take the scissors and just basically give all of the weeds a haircut. So this is a method that I've done in the past. I call it the chop and drop method, of where you just basically, I usually just use my hands and just rip and then drop and then rip and then drop. But today it's going to be scissors and then drop. So it does create a nice like living mulch as the plants die back, and it does suppress some weeds. It's obviously not as great as just ripping them all out, uprooting them, shaking it out, and then throwing that away. But this method works. It's what I've got to. It's what I'm going to do. It's really my only option. But so certain plants have done really well even with the neglect. So this here is a bunch of, there's multiple plants of spaghetti squash. This is from a spaghetti squash that we grew a couple years ago. It was still intact. It had basically like mummified itself, so it sounded like a rattle. So when we moved here, I brought it with us so that way I could harvest the seeds out of it to then plant them. But so yeah, that one there, and then there is another planting right there, and then a little ways back is another planting there. So in theory, the squash will end up growing up the fence line some before it then ducks over. So we have an area back here, back behind the dock thing, which you guys probably can't see. You guys won't be able to tell. There's an area back over in there that's actually really difficult to try to mow or anything. Like you have to weed whack the whole big thing. It just sort of drops off from the driveway, so it's a big pain. So the squashes will eventually sort of go out that way. So I planted a whole bunch of different squashes along the fence line, just in different places, so that way it can grow up and out and over. So it might keep deer away. I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea. We've not really gardened in a place that has deer pressure before, so this year's kind of all new. So far, the biggest pest pressure that we've had in the garden here, though, is the slugs. So we had problems with slugs at our last place because of how wet the property was, and after I got the garden tilled up here, I realized that there's a lot more wetness on this hillside than I had anticipated. There's actually, I would guess, probably close to 10 different spring mouths, like where those posts are over in there. That's kind of the edge of the garden. And there's just so many just places that it's just constantly like soggy, soupy, like your foot goes whenever you step on them. So I mean, it's pretty wet in different places. So everything that I planted along that fence line there actually did not germinate. So I think that next year I'm probably gonna have to sow different seeds ahead of time, like different pumpkins and squashes, because like doing something like a watermelon over there would be fantastic, or cucumbers, because they require a lot of water, and they can thrive in a lot of water, but the seeds, they can't germinate in that much water and that much wetness. So have to have to make sure that next year we start a lot more from seed ourselves, because honestly, everything that's from seed that we saved ourselves, and like have saved from years in the past and then replanted, it germinates faster, it has a better germination rate, and it tends to do better with the pests and the pest pressure that we have. So this year, obviously, things are going to be different because it's a new garden, new homestead, new property, all that stuff. We haven't even owned this place for 6 months. So, which is honestly, when I had that realization this morning that it's not even been 6 months since we've owned this land, like just looking around and seeing like how much I've gotten done, like I'm like, whoa, pretty impressive, to be quite honest, to think about how much labor went into everything, and just also maintaining it with the animals, and all of that while doing house stuff. Like it just, today was one of those moments where I was like, wow, if I didn't have the ADHD, like this never would have gotten done. Like, it's basically like, for the most part, as long as I can, stay regulated and stuff, like for the most part, it's like I've like done energy drink after energy drink after energy drink. Like I don't know how to describe it, but I have like this untapped energy like inside of me that just keeps going and going and going and going. So it just, yeah, I'm not worried about getting the garden caught up. I know that it'll take some time. We did lose quite a bit of beans to the slug pressure, and quite a lot of actual crops and stuff, like a lot of seeds that we had sown. A lot of stuff did not germinate because it's stuff that, like, it's old seed. We have a lot of old seed, so it's just been planting a whole bunch, letting it go, seeing if it'll germinate. Some of it, the weeds took over, some of it because we're on a hillside and we experienced quite a lot of heavy rains. I'm sure a lot of that seed just washed right down. Yeah, replanting a lot of different stuff this week. So first task is getting it all weeded, getting it back under control, making it look like a garden again. I'll probably end up getting the weed whacker out to do like along this fence line here. Those are just weeds. And then along that fence line there's a whole bunch of weeds there. Everything is like a foot tall. So it's pretty intense. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge to weed around the peppers because the weeds that I'm weeding around, I'm not sure what they are, but this is what they look like. And it's a very similar, the leaves are similar width and stuff as the peppers. So if you're not paying attention, like it's very easy to accidentally get the wrong thing. It was a struggle when I weed whacked around the peppers the other day, just so that way we could have a bit of a path to walk on. Yeah, I've got my work set out for me. I'm gonna get some headphones in and just actually get cranking on it, get busy with it. So I have a nice little, for those of you wondering about my knees, I have this old stock pot here. I'd actually used it a couple years ago to cook down maple syrup, or to cook the sap down into syrup. So it's a little scorched on the bottom, but it'll work perfectly fine as a stool. It's the right height so that way my knees aren't too bent, and I'm not uncomfortable to sit on it. So it's always nice when you find something that's the right height. I told Tracy the other day that it'd be nice if we end up getting one of those like garden cart thingies, like the seats on a wheel, like with wheels and stuff. But I don't know if our pathways would even allow for something like that. So it might just be me and my pot. So one thing I just thought about this. When we got the last place, we were like dirt poor, like to the point of poorness. Like I would say we were more poor than we are right now, which is pretty desperate. Anyways, but so whenever we got there, like we couldn't use the bathroom or anything because the plumbing needed redone. We couldn't use a lot of different stuff. I had found a pot there, like an old stock pot, and I like was using it to go to the bathroom in, like to go pee in and stuff. And like every time that I would go pee, I would stop for a moment and go, you know what? At least I have a pot to piss in. I have a pot to piss in. As long as I have a pot to piss in, then I at least have something. And that was honestly something that carried me through. And when I was just talking to you guys about this pot, like it just reminded me of having that pot to piss in, that at least I have this. So I guess there's a message in there that, when shit gets really hard, guys, just at least remember that you have a pot to piss in, that you have at least one nice thing, one luxury, because that little bit of gratitude that you can cling on to, having that something that you can cling on to really helps when times are hard. So I remember at the last house when things were really hard with the renovation, Tracy and I used to tell each other, like, well, at least we're not living in a camper anymore. Like when we couldn't find a single thing to be grateful for or appreciative of, that was what we found. Was at least we had running water, and at least we didn't live in a camper anymore. So sometimes that's how gratitude works, I suppose. That, yeah, it sucks that I have all of this weeding to do, but at least I don't have to plan a whole bunch of stuff. At least my garden's already in. At least I'm already ahead of schedule. So, and at least I have land to grow on. That is something that is so huge for me to have that. But anyways, if I keep going on, I'm just going to keep listing off all the things that I'm grateful for. And like, while that is a great thing to do, I don't think many of you will stick around for it. So anyways, thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.